So today we will start with some of the backend things. So we will start with OSGi configuration. Now, what is the purpose of OSGi configuration? So we will understand it with the help of an example. Okay. Consider you have some API like third party which you wanted to connect to. Now that third party has some URL and some username and password. Now, what would be the best? Now that URL and those credentials are different for lower environment to the prod environment. Okay. Now, what do you think is the best place to keep those URL and the credentials? Would you hard code that in your code base in your Java files, or would you thought of placing those inside some configuration file? Okay. Yeah, configuration file. So AEM provides OSGi configuration, which helps us to keep all these configurable things or configurable values as part of OSGi configuration. And the best part of this is, one thing is that you, of course, you do not have to hard code in your code. And the second thing is that you can change the value of these at any point of time. So consider you have the OSGi configuration and there is a username password, and somehow you mistakenly inputted the wrong password. Now your application is live, application is up and running, but in that application that when you are trying to connect to the third party which makes the use of these credentials, you are not able to connect because the password is incorrect. So you don't have to worry, because your credentials, because this username and password is a part of OSGi configuration. So you can make the change in those password field at any point of time without even restarting your server. So without even making any change in the server, you can easily make the changes inside the OSGi configuration, and the changes will be immediately picked up by your code. Okay. So let's understand it with the help of an example. Let's consider that there, as we just discussed, let's consider that there is some username and password and some URL. Now, first is that we have to create a OSGi configuration Java file. So here what I did is, just now I created a sample configuration. And this is this is not a class, but this is an interface. We use interface over here. And here we have to make the use of this annotation, that is @object class definition. By using this object class definition, it basically makes this class an OSGi configuration class. And here we gave it a name, that is sample configuration. You can give any name to your configuration. Okay. Now, by using this object class definition, annotation, we made this class an OSGi configuration. Now, which all properties will be dynamic, or like whose value we can dynamically change at runtime, are basically these. So these are the attributes, you can call it as attributes or values of this configuration. And you need to make the use of annotation, that is @attribute definition. So by using @attribute definition, these will become the configurable values that you can change on fly. Their value can be changed on fly. I will tell you how. And the time, like on runtime, you can change their values, and our code will start picking up their value and will start behaving according to that. So anytime you can change this, and you do not need to restart your server to basically start reflecting the changes. Okay. So here we have to use the @attribute definition, and I gave this as the display name. This is my display name for this property or for this attribute. And I said that the default value, in case if nothing has been inputted by the authors or the developers, then this will be the default value that will be used for this configurable property. Same way, I use the URL endpoint, URL username, URL password, and some URL key. Okay. And now what I will do is I can go to my service, like sample service. Now I've created this configuration, but I have to use the values of this configuration. Like this is my value of my, this is an attribute. So I have to use the value of this configuration somewhere in the code. So inside the service, to refer, firstly to refer that OSGi configuration which we created by using this object class definition, what annotation will we use is @designate, @designate, and here we will say OCD, because if you can see, it is object OCD, object class definition. So OCD is equal to the name of your configuration, that is sample configuration dot class. So by this way, what we said is now our service is now enabled to refer our configuration, that is sample configuration. Okay, this sample configuration. Now in the init method, let's use the init method, and let's say we plan to receive the configuration over here, and let's make a private variable. Private, what is the name of this? Sample configuration and config. Okay, sample config. Now here, okay, what I did is inside the init method, I received the object of sample configuration inside in a instance variable. Now I have received this. Now the final thing, what I want is I create a method public string get URL details. Okay, and here what I will do is, let me write a return statement, or let me create a string variable. URL is equal to, now I have the sample config. So what is here, you can see the all the and URL password. I have made these 4 fields configurable as part of my sample OSGi configuration. Now I will go over here and I will say I have to use what is URL endpoint. Okay, and then let's put some space. And sample dot URL username. Sample dot URL like password. Pretty simple. So here, let me say sample URL details are as, okay. What I did is, here I created this OSGi configuration with all the attributes, and I said that the default values of this attributes or this configuration values are these, in case if nothing is being inputted. What I used is, I used the @object class definition, and inside my service, to refer the OSGi configuration, what I use is @designate. OCD is equal to the name of the configuration. Now I received the object of this inside an instance variable of my OSGi configuration, and then I created a simple method and received or created a simple string out of the values of the OSGi configuration, and I said return is the URL. So I returned the URL over here. Okay, so whatever the string I created, and this string is what I created by using the OSGi configuration values. Okay, Now this is my service. Let's call this method inside my sample model. So here, let me write public string get URL. Okay. And here my this is sample service dot get URL details, and let me return it to let me return it over here. And in the sample word, let's go inside the sample word, and here let me say URL detail my model dot URL, because what is the method I created is get URL. So similar, so to simplify, I use pretty simple. I use dot URL. Let me just build this. Okay. Okay. So here.
One question, sorry. I think I forgot this one. So in the HTML file, we are referring to the model class, right?
Yes.
So every time the HTML is loading, the one object is created, or?
So every time?
Every time that the HTML is loading, so one object is being created.
Yeah, for the Sling model will be loaded, the object for Sling model will be created. But for service, only a single object will be created. Okay.
Okay.
Because see, there is a reason. Because in dialog, authors can make a change at any point in time. So in case the dialog can be changed, values of dialog can be changed anytime. So of course, your backend system, which is your Sling model, should also behave accordingly. Should be capable of receiving, and your service are nothing but utility classes, which is receiving the input and working on the basis of it.
The
so
update value is what they will get.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so it's building, and let's just wait for it to completely build, and we will see that the sample configuration that we created by this name will be available as part of our OSGi configuration. Now, how do you see your OSGi configuration? Now, let me firstly show you. So here, if you go inside the system console config manager, here all the configurations are being stored, which is our OSGi configurations. So once this code will get deployed, you will also see the sample configuration. Why I'm calling it sample configuration? Because I named my configuration as sample configuration. So this configuration will also be available along with the other configuration. So basically, other configurations are all the Adobe out-of-box code using the configuration are the available one, along with ours, this one. Okay, so this is what we have created. Plus, there will be a lot of other configurations which will be Adobe's out-of-box provided. Okay, so our code is still building, but here you can see these are all the out-of-box Adobe's configuration. See, we have our code and we made our code configurable by using OSGi configuration. The same way, Adobe also makes a lot of configuration. So those configuration are like over here. Here you can see, like this is one configuration. So if I opened it, it says some API URL, API endpoint URL, timeout socket endpoint. Because see, these endpoints, of course, you cannot, or you can, but you should not hard code these as part of your code base. Of course, this is not a good practice. That is why we make them as configurable. Okay, here. So I tell you one of the out-of-box configuration, that is Apache Sling Resource Resolver Factory. So if you remember in the last session, we discussed that in case if you overlay any file from libs to apps, then the one inside apps will start getting preference, because our code execution firstly reads the file or tries to search any file inside the apps hierarchy and then libs hierarchy. You remember this concept?
Yeah.
Now, why is it that firstly apps get preference and then libs? So basically, internally, Adobe has made a configuration for this, and this is this resource resolver factory configuration. If I open this, here you can see resource search path, the list of absolute path prefix applied to find the resource whose path is just specified with the relative path. The default value is it. So here it says the sequence in which you will mention the path. In that sequence, our execution will tries to search the files in that hierarchy or in that sequence. Okay. So firstly, it searches inside the apps and then inside the libs. So this is an out-of-box OSGi configuration provided, which takes care of this.
Okay.
So now our code has been deployed. Okay, let me just refresh my OSGi configuration and also open my page. So my page is, yeah, this one, content. Yeah. Let's open the test page, and this is my OSGi configuration. Now if I search sample, yeah, here you can see the sample configuration, the one that we created over here. And what all attributes are there? The first one is URL endpoint. Second is URL username. The third is URL password, and then URL key with their default values. If I open this, here you can see the URL endpoint, URL username. This is password and this is key. Why password is being shown like this? Because I said that this is a password field. The type is password. Okay. Okay. So now if I open my component over here, so here, okay, URL details are as, okay. Oh. So my URL details are not getting retrieved. So somewhere some issue is there in my code. Let me just edit this and save it. Okay. So my code is not able to read this. So somewhere there is some problem. Let me just check. Sample configuration. Okay. So let's me just save this, because I think we did not save it. And also let me just refresh it. Yeah, you can see the sample URL details are as yahoo.com, Yahoo username, and the third one was the password whose value did not came up, because here the sample configuration, okay, the default value was this one. So if I input, I can input over here, like now inside the sample configuration, Now, if the CM or the developers or the authors think, oh, this endpoint URL is not correct, it should be Google. Similarly, the username should also be Google username and password should also be Google. Okay. Okay. So if I will save this and if I will parallelly at the same time, if I will refresh my page, it will start giving me updated values. So all the things, all the updated things have started coming up. Google.com, Google username, and the third one was Google. Like here I have my password. I use the Google as my password. Let's use Google password. And let me just save this. Immediately you make your changes are available as. So see how easy is it to easily make changes inside the OSGi configuration, and that like you can change them on fly and those value will start coming or your code will start respecting those updated value the time you make changes in that. So basically with the help of OSGi config, you do not have to restart your server for making any code change. If in future the URL or the password of these any of these things changes, if you think that okay there is some variable or some value whose value can change sometime in the future, so best is to make it as uh, to make it configurable as part of OSGi configuration. Okay.
Okay.
Okay. Any questions till now?
I think it's okay. Yeah. I mean, we have the same thing like this.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay. So in your code, you are using the same thing.
Yeah. In the configuration, there is a flag like is something. So if that thing is checked in the configuration, then in the code is checking that if that flag is coming as true, then it will show like some sort of list, for example.
Okay. That's great. Okay.
I think it's somehow like some configuration on the fly, right?
Yeah. Yeah,
That
exactly. I'm going to
makes
tell about that only.
okay.
I am going to tell about that only actually. Now, till this point, we understood how you create configuration and how you refer or how you can make the changes in that on fly. Now, another question that arises that should have arisen in our mind is that okay, this username, this password, and this API endpoint. Okay, now we have made this configurable, but what about if we have to make these values configurable as per our run mode? Like if we have an author or if we have a prod, then on prod I want a different value, and on lower I want a different value. Of course, what you can do is every time you are on prod, every time after deployment, you can make changes in your prod. You can make changes in your configuration to make those configuration as per prod. And similarly on lower, you can go inside again inside the system console config manager and change over there and to make the configuration as per lower environment. But that is of course not a good solution because this configuration should see the problem with this would be that okay, after first deployment you made the changes inside the system console on both prod and lower. Now again when the code will get deployed, the changes will get overridden. The changes that you will do won't sustain there after you do a deployment. Every time after deployment you have to make the changes.
Yes.
That is of course not a good solution. Okay.
Yeah.
So the best is that you make these configuration value as part of your code base. But what if you want to make this configuration available or configuration value available as per run? Okay. So they have provided us with a module that is UI content. UI, sorry, not UI content, it's UI config. Where is the UI? Where did I accidentally deleted it or what?
It should be inside core, right?
Just a minute. Okay, it so looks like some issue has or it has been accidentally deleted. Oh man, UI content is there, but there is no UI config. So there needs to be UI config folder.
When
So that
we create the whole project, it will be in the command or something, or
yeah, maybe while creating this project, maybe sometime during that we didn't realize, but that module was not created. Let me do one thing. Let me just copy it from the others one, and we'll add this as a dependency in our parent one. So if I go inside the teams, so UI and UI content. Oh, that's strange. They also do not have it. I think where else do we keep it? Not inside our dispatcher. It's IT launch, UI apps, UI app structure node, UI content, content node, neither inside conf. Strange. There is no UI config folder. Neither is it inside. Okay. Ah, okay. Let's go inside our CRX. Let's see if it's over there. Let's duplicate this and go to CRX/DE. Yeah. Okay, it's over here. That's strange. But why can't I see? I think it should be UI apps, SRC. Is it JCR? I just have some. Oh, okay, it's over here. So yeah, see, it's over here. Inside the UI apps, if you see, oh, okay. So why did I got confused is because in one of the latest archive, what they have done is that these config here, you can see the config folders.
yeah.
These are the config folder where you can place your configuration as per run modes. I will tell you how. Like here you can see always the folder name should be config and then there's a dot. Then after dot, it should be the name of your run mode. Like if you remember, our run modes were of course author and publisher, but also our run mode, custom run modes for our author was prod and prachi, if you remember that correctly. So here what we can do is like here I can just copy this. Do I have any file? Okay, is there any file under over here? All have is okay. Let me just copy this, and what I can do is, oh, how can I copy this?
It's at the top here.
And over here I can paste it, and here what were the run modes? Of course author was one of the run mode, then I have the prod, and then I have prachi. Okay, so after config, whatever is the name, are the names separated by dots will be your name of your run mode of that instance. Now if so all these are the name of your run mode, if you remember correctly. Do you remember? All these were the name of a run mode.
Yeah.
If I remove any of the run mode, then it's okay. Still, this is a valid folder because Also, my run mode name of my author instance is author and prod. But let's consider if I gave it a name config.author.prod. Like something like EE. Now EE is not an run mode name, so this will not be considered as a run mode folder. So we need to give a proper name to our folder where we can store our configuration. So here I gave a name as config.author.prod. Here I could have also given as config.author.prod.prachi, because Prachi was also run mode, was also the name of our run mode. Now let me do is one thing, let me save it like this. And here you can see now, okay, now here I have two folders. One is config.author, the other is config.author.prod, and then there is a config. Now, now let me firstly create a configuration. So how will I create a configuration for my sample configuration? What was the name of the service? The name of the service, it would be the name of the service. Using the name of the service, your configuration will be created. So here here is the package. So let me just copy this and let me paste it over here. So let me create a new file with name and then sample service.xml. So here we created an XML file whose name is the package name dot file name of the service, which is referring our configuration. So yes, XML, or basically your configuration file, is created by the name of the service, which is referring the
Yes, one question, those run mode names we created inside the AM instance, right?
Yeah, run modes. Yeah, if you let me just show it to you again.
Sorry.
Okay, let me just open it over here again. So here inside the startup, if you remember, I gave the run mode names.
Yeah.
Prod, Prachi, and of course, author is one of them. Okay.
Yes.
So that's what I gave over here. Now I have this XML over here, and I can place the same XML over here as well inside the config.author folder. Now consider this is also the same XML and this is also the XML. And if a service like my sample service, which is referring my configuration, if that gets hit inside the author instance, then my both these folder resolves to my author instance, because the run mode over here is author and the run mode over here is author.prod, because author and of course prod both are the name, and author of course is also the name. But which one is the best matching folder? The best matching folder is this one, because this is the maximum number of names that matches your run modes. Yes. So the XML or the configuration file below this will start getting preference. Okay. Now, if I have the same configuration inside the config folder as well, but it doesn't matter, the best match one is this one. Okay. If this folder is not would not have been there, this folder also would not have been there, then in that case, this is the default folder which gets by default considered. Okay. Now, if I place some configurations over here, like let me just copy it from here. Why do we write it? So let me just place it over here and let's change it as per our configuration. So what was our
the name of configuration, right?
Yeah, this configuration. So the name is this URL endpoint. So let me use the name over here and let me put the value as training. Let's say training, AEM training. Okay. Now the second one, username. And the username, what I will place it as anything like AEM username. Okay. Okay. And let's give it like the run mode. What is the run mode is author prod. And this one is also author prod. Okay. Let's use these two properties. And also let's use this one as well. Let's use three properties. So here we use the third one as well. And this is AEM password author.prod. Okay, now this is what configuration I created over here, and the same configuration I create over here, and the values are only over here. Now you tell me, if I will deploy the code, which values will be picked up and displayed in my code base? These values or these values? Of course, these values will no longer be displayed because these were the default value, and these will be used in case no configuration is present. But in our case, the configuration XMLs are present, so the values from that will be picked. In case if no configuration folder is matching as per run mode, then okay, by default the config folder will match, but conditionally it should have the necessary XML or the configuration file. Now we know that okay, this folder is also matching with our run mode, and this is also matching. So which one will be considered?
The first one, right? The one which matches more.
Yeah, the one which matches more, that will be considered. Consider if there is also a folder with the name config.author.prod.prachi, then that folder would be considered. Okay, that means on the basis of run mode, you can trigger or you can use different configurations. So in case like if you have author on prod, you want some different credentials, and on lower you want some different credentials to be part of your configuration, you can make your configurations run mode specific. So this is config.author.prod. You can make config.publish. If you remember, it was some name Lokesh, like the alias name of publish. If you do not remember, let me just show it to you. Do you remember?
Yep, that's
inside the room. So here. Okay, so here I could have created a folder as config.lokesh or config.publish.lokesh. Both the folder would have resolved in case of publisher. Okay, so the code is getting deployed, and after that we will see. So what we did is we made these configurations run mode specific, that which value will be picked under which run mode or under which instance type or depending upon run mode. So that we have created run mode specific.
okay.
Let's just see if our code is okay. It's still deploying. Once it gets deployed, then okay. And also always remember the important thing, which most of the developers tend to make mistake, is the name of the configuration file is always created on the basis of the name of the service which refers that configuration, not the configuration name. So see, our configuration name is this sample configuration, but which service is referring, that by using that is the XML name that gets created.
We need to refer the service name, not the configuration.
Yeah. Why is it so? Because multiple configuration or multiple service can refer your configuration. Now we'll consider there is a service A and service B. Both need to refer this configuration now, but they need to have different values. So that's why we create the configuration service-wise. So service A can have its own XML, service B can have its own XML, and they can have different values in the XML, but ultimately they are referring the same configuration. Got my point?
Yeah. there can be like other services that referring to this configuration, right?
Exactly.
Doing different things.
Exactly. Now, if I go over here and refresh this, you can see AEM training, author prod, AEM username, author prod, AEM password, author prod. This one is getting configured. And also, if you remember, like we changed our sample configuration to Google one, but now you can see after we deployed code, it got reverted back. So anytime you can make changes, but after deployment, those changes will be reverted. So that is why you can make the changes on fly, but those changes should also be a part or committed in your code base. Because if you won't commit those on code base and you will directly make those configuration changes over here, then the next time when the deployment will happen, it will be lost.
Yes. True.
So this was the concept of OSGi configuration, of how you make the values configurable in your AEM.
So just one more question. So if you want to implement this concept of like this sample service XML files, so before this we need to have the concept of run mode thing, right? Otherwise there's no point.
So for OSGi configuration, you mean?
Yeah, like this on the fly variables.
Sorry, come again?
I mean, like if we want to use this
Yes.
service, like sample service XML files,
Uh-huh.
for this, I need to have like that run mode things, right? In the startup, the one
Yes,
that you named.
yes. So see, if you see, it doesn't, it's okay even if you do not have the run mode, then also you have at least the config
At
folder.
least config folder.
XML inside the config folder. So by default, it will not work differently for run mode, but at least it will make your files configurable, or it will values configurable. It will make your values configurable.
Okay. So
Okay.
we just want differentiate run mode. Is it run mode on author or is it like in the, for example, on the publisher?
Yeah.
Mhm.
So on any basis, like whatever your run mode name is, according to that, you can create the folders. Like consider I have this config.author, and let me also think of creating an config.author.abcd. Okay, so here I'm saying that there are two run modes for my instance. One is author and the other is ABCD. But consider that the author instance does not have any run mode name ABCD. So that folder, it doesn't mean that that folder will be resolved. But since you are giving an invalid this run mode name, so and one run mode name author is correct, but the other one is wrong. So that folder would never be resolved because you gave a wrong run mode name that is not available in your code base, or sorry, not in code base, but your instance does not have that run mode name. Okay.
Okay.
So the best matching and all the all the one that matches, that folder will be considered with all the run mode names matches.
Yeah.
Okay. Sorry for that. Okay. Let me start with the other topics, that is logging logger and what all the different type of log files are there in your AEM. So how would you troubleshoot the problem if you get? How would you see what exceptions are coming? Okay. All these we will discuss now. Let's start with and let's see which all we can complete. So in AEM, if you go inside the CLX quick start, I told you do it very carefully because there is a repository folder and all your tar files, basically all the repository data is being stored under this repository folder in the form of tars. Always use this CLX quick start folder very carefully. Here, the important folder for us is this logs folder. This is pretty important folder, because all your log files, everything that you do in your code base gets printed inside the logs file. Okay, so inside the log, if you see, there are a lot of logs.
Yes.
There are a lot of log files, but the main ones that we use are the one that we will discuss now. So the most important one that you would be using on regular basis and that you must also right now also must be using is this error.log. So any functionality do you do, any page that you refresh, anything that you do gets logged inside this error.log. So this error log tell you each and every information about what you have done or any functionality that fails, all your custom code, all that thing gets printed inside error.log. So here, if I open it, here you can see all the information what all is happening behind the scene or within AEM gets printed inside the error.log, and also all your application related log. Like when I talk about application loaded, it means that all your like you created a sample application, so all the Java files would be printing some info, warning, or error log. All those logs will be logged inside this error.log. So any issue that you get while executing any service, you don't know where it is failing, just go inside error.log and try to find what error is your log printing, what error is it coming. So all that will help you debug your application. Okay, so all the application specific log gets printed inside error.log. We will discuss more about this error.log. Okay, but let's firstly understand the other type of logs as well. So error.log is of course the parent, like you can say it contains the most important log. Every application, all the application that is running, all those logs get logged inside the error.log. So all the application specific logs get logged inside